Greetings and welcome back to every naval battle in history. This is episode 11, the Battle of Aegina, 458 BCE. In this episode, we tackle a mysterious and obscure battle which nevertheless casts some interesting shadows on the ancient world. Like Sherlock Holmes' dog that didn't bark, the very little said about the superbowl of the Saronic Gulf tells us quite a bit. Strap in as we wildly speculate about the Battle of Aegina, 458 BCE. So, what do we know? This is the entirety of the Wikipedia entry. The Battle of Aegina was a sea battle that took place in 458 BCE between Aegina, aided by the Peloponnesian League, and Athens as part of the Third Messenian War. Athens captured 70 ships and landed, laying siege to the city-state. The siege was successful after a little more than 2 years. Subsequently, Aegina paid tribute to Athens. So we know it was a very big battle. 70 ships captured puts it right up the top of the Naval Battle 2nd Division. It's no Midway or Salamis, but it's big. So why do we know so little? Let's unpack the tiny amount we have to work on here. The battle is named after one of the antagonists, Aegina. What is Aegina? It's one of the Saronic Islands in the Saronic Gulf, where Athens is. So that's our problem. This is like one of those horror stories where the police figure out the murderer is already inside your house. The Saronic Gulf is basically part of Athens. The island of Aegina is 27 kilometres from Athens proper, but it gets a lot worse and very fast. From the Athenian port of Piraeus, it's just 22 kilometres to Aegina. This got me wondering if they could see each other from there. Thanks to the magic of Google Street View, we can pop onto the northern shore of Aegina, look north, and... yep. Athens and Aegina were within plain sight of each other. Today home to just 9,000 souls, in its heyday Aegina was said by Aristotle to house around 500,000 slaves. This would have made it one of the largest cities in the world, which strains belief. I don't think Aristotle's number is right, but it must have been a big city. Aegina had a huge fleet and lucrative trade with the Phoenician cities of modern-day Lebanon. Aegina was the first city-state in Europe to issue minted coins, the stater. Their mark was the sea turtle, so they can't have been all bad. We are told it was ruled by an oligarchy of the island's wealthiest citizens. But let's not forget that we're only getting the Athenian side of the story. The Athenians made sure there was no other side to tell. There's a bit of evidence to suggest Aegina played a larger part in the Greek victory at Salamis than the Athenians give them credit for. Today, some impressive ruins survive from antiquity. Now about the Peloponnesian League. Basically, this was Sparta's answer to the Delian League, which in turn was Athens' alliance structure. Aegina aligning itself with the Peloponnesian League might have seemed like a good idea at the time, but fundamentally the Athenians would have looked out at the Saronic Gulf and said to themselves, "Those bastards have got to go." Which brings us to the Third Messenian War. Messenia was an ancient Greek city which had the extreme misfortune to be very close to Sparta. For most of ancient history, they were stuck being Spartan slaves. I know the Sparta stans are going to say, "Oh, but Helots weren't slaves." To which I reply that if an ancient Greek like Pollux describes Helots as between free men and slaves, and Critias called them slaves to the utmost, I'm going to cut out the waffle and just call them slaves. Anyway, Messenians would, every now and then, try to throw off the cruel Spartan bondage to live free. This isn't like the modern man-babies shrieking about their freedom because they don't want to pay tax. This is the real cry for freedom of people held in slavery. Anyway, the fact the Messenian efforts to be free gives us a numbered series of wars is extremely telling in itself. The slavers of Aegina sided with Sparta in the Third Messenian War, and while the Athenians were no angels either, this gave them the opportunity to finally dispose of the flaming bag of poo on their doorstep. There appears to have been very little glory to go around in this conflict, given how little history remains. The Athenians do appear to have made a lot of effort to hunt down the Aegean refugees for some years later. That was it for Aegina as a great power. It largely became part of Athens' orbit, although many centuries later in the 12th century CE, it was a base for pirates. More to come soon as we take on every naval battle in history.